Hi, I'm Bruce Williams. This is Chamber Chats. I'm the CEO of the Greater Victoria Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to begin, as always, by acknowledging that I live and work in the ancestral territories of the Lekwungen-speaking Coast Salish nations, the Songhees and the Esquimalt. We're grateful for the opportunity to live and work with them every single day. This program is brought to you courtesy of Island Savings, a division of First West Credit Union, and Victoria Shipyards, C-SPAN, Victoria Shipyards, and we do it in the studios at Czech Television. So here's the kind of nerd I am. Back in the day when you would travel around and do a lot of meetings during the course of a day, I used to keep track of how many municipalities I went through on any given day. And I also discovered over time, it's really difficult to avoid View Royal. We're going to talk about that. Not that that's, I'm not saying you should avoid View Royal, but we're going to have conversations on our chamber chats with a number of the regional mayors. David Screech is the mayor of View Royal, where Amanda and I happen to live. Mayor, how are you today?
Good afternoon, Bruce. I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this program today. I just want to talk a little bit on the personal side. You were a councillor before you were the mayor, which is always a good idea to do that. What got you into politics and into elected life?
We moved into View Royal in 1998, and our home backs on to Knockin Hill Park. And there was a lot of different things happening to do with Knockin Hill Park, and I got involved with the Friends of Knockin Hill Park Society. And then I ended up sitting on the Town of View Royal Parks Committee. And one thing just led to another. There was a big contentious development proposals, as there always is, where the Canadian Tire is now at Craigflower and Admirals, and then also where Eagle Creek is now. There was a proposal for a Home Depot there that was very contentious. So I think all those different things combined just made me want to get involved.
You know, when we take a look at elected officials, very often people run on some kind of a personal agenda. You didn't really have that. You were doing what you felt was in the best interest of the municipality. Talk about working in that mix of people, both on your own council and through the CRD, about people that have different agendas, models of operating, if you will.
Well, I think when I first got involved, I was lucky enough to be fairly good friends with two existing councillors who actually, strangely enough, are still on View Royal Council. And they helped to give me a leg up and a leg in. But in general, I hear what you're saying. And of course, you, especially at the CRD table, you deal with very different personalities and different people that are coming from issues from completely different perspectives that you are. And, I think it is an ongoing process of always being prepared to listen and to learn, and to try to make concessions and balances and work towards consensus where you can.
So when I said at the beginning it's difficult to avoid View Royal, what I meant by that is that you're right in the middle. I mean, it's depending if you're going to or from the West Shore, if you're going into downtown, if you're going across town, going through Saanich, most people are going to touch on some part of View Royal, aren't they?
We are. I mean, we really are the geographic heart of the region. If you look at a map and put it in the middle, it would hit View Royal. And of course, you can't go up island or to the West Shore without going through View Royal. I think that's one of the reasons why Handy Dart, of course, is building their new facility in View Royal, is because geographically, they can get to all parts of the region faster than if it was in another distinct municipality. So no, we're in the middle for sure. We're at the pinch point too, which means we get a lot of the regional traffic as well.
Yeah, when you stop and think about what's in View Royal as well, some of the landmarks, for example, you have Victoria General Hospital is in View Royal. Jeneece Place is in View Royal. The casino is in View Royal, and now this Handy Dart facility. So tell me about the business character and the business profile of View Royal.
Well, I think over the years, we have tried to increase the ratio of commercial to residential just to help with our tax base. And Eagle Creek is a good example of I think a really well thought out commercial development. There's 200 rental apartments there. There's services, there's medical services. It's right beside the Vic General Hospital. And that's the site where years ago Home Depot wanted to go. And so you imagine the difference if that had just been a big box store as opposed to that development that's there today. The casino clearly is a major part of View Royal and a major player in our economy. And I mean, I certainly hope over the years that we're going to see a hotel built on that 6 mile strip and more businesses that'll support and be complementary to the to the casino. The hospital, I mean, we're fortunate in many ways to have it in View Royal. I often drive by it and curse that it was built before View Royal was incorporated, because they would have never been allowed to build such an ugly building had we been a municipality at that point.
Okay.
But it's good that it's there. Yeah. No, we have a lot of good commercial development. The 4 Mile Pub, obviously the 6 Mile Pub, they're two real local establishments.
I just want to refer back to, you said before you were incorporated as a municipality. What was View Royal before it was View Royal?
It was just an electoral area,
Okay.
so much. Yeah. And so we were incorporated in 88, and I think 1988, and I think the hospital was completed in 1983, something like that.
Oh, yeah. Okay. You also mentioned about the tax balance between residential and business. Maybe not everybody understands that. So let's talk about that for a second. Businesses pay taxes at a different rate than residences.
Right. So we're at the moment, our sort of total taxes that we collect are about 75% residential and 25% commercial. And it's not that long ago that it was more it was swung heavily in the residential. And so for the town's budget and economy to get that ratio a little bit higher, commercial obviously makes a big difference to the budget and for the residents as well.
So we've talked about View Royal being sort of right in the middle of everything, and it's hard to avoid it when you're going somewhere. But the thing I want to ask next is, does View Royal consider itself a part of the West Shore? Talking today on the Chamber Chats with David Screech. He's the mayor of the town of View Royal. So, Mayor, are you West Shore or are you not? Or are you just the gateway to and from?
We just can't make up our mind. We have so much in common with the West Shore. We obviously were a partner in West Shore Parks and Rec. Our fire departments have automatic and mutual aid agreements. The West Shore Detachment obviously polices us. So, if you'd asked me this 20 years ago, I probably would have told you that I thought we were more core than West Shore. But I do now think we're more West Shore. But I'll put the caveat on that really we're both. I mean, we are right in the middle, and we border Esquimalt and Saanich as well. Our library is the downtown branch. So I think we have a foot in both ponds, but we have strong allegiances to the West Shore for sure.
Every council will have priorities that they want to work on during their term of office in their 4-year term. What are the priorities for your council right now?
Well, I mean, I think the big one for everyone in recent years has been climate change. So that is certainly something that we've been working on and looking at what we can do. Transportation issues are always big. Housing issues clearly are a problem throughout the region. But in many ways with View Royal, and we just like to focus on View Royal. We have a council that's very View Royal centered, and we like to focus on good services, good values for tax dollars, the values of the community. And we really have worked hard to build or to maintain a green, walkable town. Our strategic plan, our catchphrases that we want to be the best place to call home. And I think we really do work towards that with parks and everything else that we do.
Of course, when you're doing all of that stuff, there are controversies that come along. You had a bit of a tussle a while back with that development that's going to go into Portage Inlet, where some residents are being displaced and something else is coming in. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, that was Christie Point, and that was the redevelopment. Of course, you have an older rental development there that was built in the 60s, I believe, and the buildings are nearing the end of their useful life. And you have a proponent who wants to put more density in there and higher buildings. And it's always a conflict. There's tenants that'll have to leave. And, it's one of those situations where everybody has valid points and valid arguments. And at the end of the day, there's no way that everyone is going to be pleased with the outcome. But we worked hard on that and got a good package for the existing tenants. And I think when that is built, and I have no idea at this point in time when that'll be, but I think when it is built, it'll be a really nice, good quality rental development that we'll be able to be very proud of.
Well, rental, density, all of those things that are needed to address the housing crisis that we face right now. So in that sense, it's a step forward.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And we really have been trying to put density where, on the major transit corridors, et cetera, because we can do that and then still protect the neighborhoods in View Royal and maintain their character, which is very important to the existing residents. But having said that, we do, I think, have a responsibility to provide housing in this region. And so we're working hard to maintain that balance.
Yeah, for those who don't know where that is, if you're on the Old Island Highway and you are in Craigflower and you cross Admirals, it's on the right-hand side, on the other side of the street from Canadian Tire. It's a little enclave down in there. So,
Yeah.
and again, in that same location, at that same intersection, you have two of the oldest sort of examples of early settlement and colonization by Europeans around here. That's the Craigflower Manor and the Craigflower Schoolhouse. So there's something going on at Craigflower Manor at the old farmhouse that, again, there's been a bit of a lightning rod of attention because some trees were cut down, but the bigger plan addresses that. So talk about that development because there's lots going on there.
So the Highland Game Society has entered into a long-term lease with the province for that property. And part of that includes them maintaining and looking after Craigflower Manor, and which is a national historic site, and that's going to be untouched within this current development. But the Highlands Game Society is building a Scottish cultural center or community center on the corner, and it's a beautiful design. It's worth looking up online what they're planning on that site. I think it's going to be a very attractive building. View Royal doesn't really have any modern community space, and this will be available for functions. It'll be available for community events when the town is going to have open houses, that sort of thing. And it'll be available for anyone across the region to rent for different functions. So I think it's going to be a wonderful addition. I know people are upset to see the property at the manor being impacted, but I think we need to look at the bigger picture, and this new community center is actually going to ensure the long-term protection of the original manor house.
I want to talk about Indigenous relations right now too, David, because we're all going through some form of reconciliation process and an acknowledgement of what the process has involved to date. So View Royal actually borders directly onto the Esquimalt Nation, and there's recognitions of that culture on the Craigflower Bridge. Boy, that construction project's a distant memory. Remember all that upheaval? Man, oh man.
Right.
But tell me about the relationship with the nations and what sort of recognition might be in place at this new facility at Craigflower.
I mean, we border both the Esquimalt nations and the Songhees nations,
Mm-hmm.
and we have good relationships with both bands. We provide the fire service, emergency preparedness, so we work closely with the bands on those. In terms of the development at Craigflower, I'm not absolutely sure what the Highland Game Society has in mind, but I'm sure they will be. But in an exciting event that we are going to have in View Royal, I hope in October, is that we commissioned Tom LaFortune last year to do a 15-foot totem pole for our fire hall, our new fire hall that was fairly recently completed. And that is also the fire hall, obviously, for the Songhees and the Esquimalt First Nations. So the pole has been virtually done for a little while, but we've been holding off doing a recognition or raising the pole because of COVID-19. But we're hoping to have a fairly big event in September with both bands and the public, and an unveiling of that pole. And it's going to have a very prominent spot right in front of the fire hall on Island Highway. So it's going to be quite a feature.
Yeah, that carving was done actually in a tent, which is next to the new cannabis store that the
That's
Songhees
right.
Nation opened up, and oddly enough, cannabis store with a food truck right next to it. How about that for good planning? So that's
Yeah,
where he
that's
had done the
right.
carving on that. We
Yeah.
want to continue our conversation right now with a guy who is the mayor of View Royal, but he was born and raised in this region and has seen some changes. We're going to talk about that next. We are talking today with David Screech on Chamber Chats. He is the mayor of View Royal. David, you're born and raised in this town, not in
I was
View Royal. Sorry.
born in Vancouver and
Oh,
raised in Victoria. So
so
yeah, I've been here my life.
in
Yeah.
your lifetime, seeing it from a political lens or as a citizen lens, what sort of evolutions have you seen? What are the changes that you think have been most profound?
So do you mean just changes to the region in general
Yeah,
or outlook or?
yeah,
Well, I think the growth, even when I look back to when I was growing up in the 60s and the 70s, the difference in the region is enormous. And it's, some good, some bad with the growth. That the traffic is obviously one that we hear about all the time as local politicians. But, on the whole, I think we've grown and we're doing well as a region. I mean, the regional parkland, for example, the CRD parks, I think there's a lot of examples of good changes and lands that have been protected that we've done over the years. But yeah, there's no doubt the region is changing rapidly.
Getting around in the region, as you say, traffic is a bit of an issue. So obviously, View Royal is served by transit, by BC Transit. Also, barreling right through the middle of View Royal is the E&N Rail Trail. What's the latest conversations around that, and where does the town stand on returning rail traffic?
Well, the town has certainly always supported the recommissioning of the rail. Um, as you know, I'm the chair of the CRD Transportation Committee, and we've just passed priorities. And one of the priorities is to look at how we maintain that corridor and how we get rail started. So we'll be working with the province on it. But I don't get the impression that anything is going to happen short term on that. I hope long term it will. As the island grows, it seems to me that for freight and for passengers, it's just a no-brainer that we need to have that corridor commissioned and up and running again. So I'm certainly optimistic that the province will make the necessary investments along with the federal government.
And BC Transit a short time ago announced that they are doing some rapid routes throughout the region to get people around a little better. Is that going to serve View Royal?
Yes. Yeah, the rapid bus from the West Shore Exchange and from Langford right to downtown. There's no doubt that for residents, that's going to give them a faster alternative. And there will be some changes on the 6 mile strip to accommodate that in terms of queue jumpers and that type of thing.
Yeah. So again, if you're traveling through View Royal on your way to or from the West Shore, or even across town to go to UVic or something, all of this stuff is going to be a factor. All of this stuff. Um, when you take a look at View Royal in general, in broad terms, what do you need more of, and what do you need less of?
Well, that's an interesting question.
That's my job, is to ask those questions.
Well, I mean, I would love to see what I mentioned earlier when you say more of, and that's businesses to support the casino. I mean, I think we have the potential to have a mini entertainment center out around the casino with some good restaurants and possibly a theater and hotels. And so that's certainly a big goal of mine, and I think of council, to see that happen. um, I think the West Shore, completely not business related, but one thing all of us on the West Shore have a responsibility to do is to look at shelters. At the moment we have no homeless shelters, none of that. And that all the brunt of that falls to downtown. And so that's something that we need more of. More of parks for sure. I think, the more green space, the more walkability in the town we can do is wonderful. Less of, I honestly I can't think of anything right off the top of my head other than traffic.
Yeah. And everybody's working on
Let,
that in their own way too.
less vehicles passing through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, David, I guess we better talk about amalgamation now. That conversation just never seems to go away, and I know that among a lot of elected officials there is no will for that to happen, but among some there is. What's your perspective on that? What's your feel about amalgamation?
I have pretty strong feelings about amalgamation, and I certainly understand that we need to be doing some things better in a regional sense, like transportation, housing. Although I do think the CRD board has been much more progressive this last term, and we're looking at that. But for me and View Royal, my number one job is to look out for the interests of View Royal and what I think is the best thing for View Royal. And no one yet has made a convincing argument to me of how amalgamation would benefit View Royal. We have a wonderful community. We share our services for policing, recreation, library, fire. We have the third lowest residential tax rate in the region. We contribute regionally to the arts programs, to the regional housing. So we are a regional player. We don't try to be just a silo unto ourselves. But we also have a small council who's very engaged. They all live in our community. They all love the community. They're all approachable, and they all care deeply about the community. And I honestly think View Royal thrives and prospers because of that. And the idea of having View Royal being governed by a centralized council, I just don't ever see that it could possibly be better for View Royal than that. So I'm not, as I'm sure you can gather, a fan of amalgamation at all.
Well, in whatever form it would ever happen, if it does, it would have to probably be a ward system whereby people in View Royal get to elect someone who represents their jurisdiction within a larger council. But as you say,
Yes.
that planning takes years, if not generations, for that
Yeah,
stuff to
I
happen.
would just really prefer to see us do much better on, like, we need a regional transportation authority.
Mm.
That's been clear to me for years that we need to do. So we need to improve some of the regional governance mechanisms, but I don't think that that means collapsing the municipalities at the same time.
Yeah, there's already some interjurisdictional procurement agreements, I believe, like people are buying paper, toners, printers, trucks, whatever it might be. There are some municipalities that cooperate on that, do they not?
Absolutely. I mean, there's an incredible number of agreements for intermunicipal cooperation that the public never hear about because, of course, the media just likes to play up the ones that we don't get along with. But
Yes.
there are, like, for example, Esquimalt takes care of View Royal sewer stations,
Hmm.
and we've had that agreement in place for years and years and years. And there's all sorts of those across the region.
David, I know you're a busy guy. We appreciate your time. As I said at the beginning, Amanda and I live in View Royal and we love it. We think it's an amazing place. So thanks for your leadership and your guidance and your counsel and all you do for not only View Royal, but for the region too. So thanks for your time. Appreciate
No,
it.
thank you, Bruce, and thank you for having me on.
You bet. David
Thanks.
Screech. David Screech is the mayor of View Royal. And I'm Bruce Williams. We'll see you again for another Chamber Chat.